Okay, hi. So this is Ray Lutz with Citizens Oversight, and this is our weekly election integrity meeting with focus mostly on ballot image auditing and things of that nature. But today we have an interesting presentation scheduled. Dale Axelrod has, well, Dale, why don't you just jump right into it and tell us what what you want to present?
Okay, well, I'll share my screen.
Okay, let me allow that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So I went up to.
Not seeing it yet.
Oh yeah, I haven't done it yet.
Oh, okay. All right, go ahead.
Okay, so I went up to. Let's see. Let me share this one. And let's see. Yes. Okay. So this, I went up to Shasta County, who have voted to ditch the machines and just do a hand count, but they're not going to get anywhere with that because the Secretary of State already has put a legislation together to prevent that. But this is Clint Curtis's demonstration of how his methodology for doing a hand count, which is you're seeing on screen this apparatus here with two things with iPhones on it.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so this is the concept is that you're gonna have a pair of vote counters, and there's two simple calculators on either side of the ballots. I've got video I'll show you in a second, but just to explain what the concept is, you're going to have one a recording of a close-up recording of each ballot as they're counted, and then an overview. The second higher iPhone is going to capture both of the calculators and basically the people involved in doing the count. And so they will do a batch of 30, and this is what was demonstrated here. And so now I'm going to, so just to explain this calculator right here, this area right here that I'm pointing to, can you see it on with my cursor circling?
Right. Mm-hmm.
This is where the contestant's name is. And this green button is to get the vote, to increase their vote count. This red button is sort of in case the green button hits too many times, you can subtract a vote on this side.
I see.
And then there's there's a secondary tally up here in this other window that is counting either undervotes, overvotes, or other people that aren't that they're not tallying in the contest. So basically they'll have a batch of 30, and when they do that batch of 30, either the undervotes or other votes or the votes for another a candidate, all these things will add up to 30. If they're not adding up correctly, they'll redo the batch. So that's basically the concept. So now let me show.
Let me ask you a question though first.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's stop here and make sure everybody, if there's any questions. So there's only one person evaluating for each contestant, right? And so there's only two in this contest?
Well, there'll be a pair of two to kind of.
So are these doing the same thing?
No, this one will do another contest. In order to do, like, for instance, let me get a close-up of this. Okay. This is a better close-up, but it wasn't showing the apparatus. So you'll be able to see if there's, let's say there's 26 contestants for U.S. Senator on this ballot.
Yeah.
They will run this batch 13 times to count every contestant. And if the person got 0, they'll run this batch, and they'll run a pair of contestants, and if nobody gets zero, they'll run through it. It'll be recorded.
By a
And
pair of contestants, so there's two people at a time being counted. They're
two
not
people at a time, yes.
So these two counters are not counting the same thing at the same time. They're counting
Exactly, yeah. But they're in cahoots with one another in terms of making sure their numbers add up and they've covered all the ballots.
The total number of ballots. Okay.
Yeah.
And then they would leaf through the ballots, basically the number of contestants divided by 2 for each contest.
Yep.
Okay. Any other questions? Who wants to?
Yes, I have a question. This is a pretty sophisticated calculator. Who's making this? Who's behind?
Clint makes it. Clint makes them.
Oh, he's actually making them.
Yeah.
Does he have a company now?
I haven't really, I've connected with him somewhat, but I haven't really delved into all the details. In fact, I asked him last night about, do we actually go through these ballots to have every contestant, even though some of these people will never get even one vote? And he said, yeah, that's the idea, that it's a thorough count of all the contestants in the contest.
So
go ahead. Go ahead.
I have one more question. I know we're about to see this on video, so this, if I just, you can just tell me, just wait and see, Susan. But so on the calculator on the left, there's going to be one person operating that, or 2 people overseeing it, or just one?
No, one person is operating this one. One person is operating this one. Both of the people are next to one another, so they're kind of seeing each other and making sure they're accurate.
All right. So forgive me for being dense, but so the person on the left, what are they're going to be starting with one candidate in one race and adding up the votes for that candidate?
Yes.
And how does the race show up in that little upper right corner? How do they pull the race up?
Oh, these things are like sliding nameplate type clips, and so you'll see that the person's name is going to be slid into this. In fact, here's the thing where they're not doing any handwriting. They're actually it's a lot of prep for what they're doing here, but they're actually having fully clear. The whole idea is when this count is done, you've got a video recording of them both counting accurately, and you've got a video recording of all the ballots, and it's all very clear. You can see that the names are typeset, and it's not just handwritten in and everything. So
okay,
thanks, Sam.
Any more questions before we see the video? Okay, I think I've learned a lot by the questions. Okay, let's go on to the video. That might be very important as well.
All right, so let me do the video. Okay, and let me get to the video. Okay, and optimize. Now this is 5 minutes long, but it's not. I'm not going to show the whole 5 minutes. At the end, you'll see I'm going to skip through some things, but this kind of gives you an idea of
we're seeing the same thing of her cutting out.
Okay, all right. Okay, now now you can see the video. So it's 5 minutes long. I won't go through the whole thing at the end because you'll see at the end. I'll explain.
Yeah,
and I'll stop.
I think we'll get the idea. We'll probably get the idea. All right, go ahead.
Okay.
So they're not clicking anything if it's not shown in the. So if there's nothing there, they don't click anything, do they?
Yeah, no, they actually click either other. They click other, and that's just for the purpose of keeping track of how many ballots they.
Stop here for a second because I need to understand what they're doing right now.
Yeah.
So what they're doing right now is the person has other over there, and
yes.
If someone else has voted like a write-in, is that what it means? then they,
No, it's like one of the other candidates that are on the list, but that they aren't keeping track of.
oh, I see. Some of the lower end candidates, I see.
Yeah.
So any of the ones at the bottom that are called other, then they would get those votes. And if there's a ballot, when they pick these up, they go to the next ballot
Mhm.
and there's no clicking going on, meaning there was no votes for other. They don't keep track of the fact that there was no votes.
Yeah, that's where they keep track of the other votes.
Well, how are they keeping track of the number of ballots being processed? Like you said,
Well,
30 would be coming
if
up
you
here.
noticed on the video when it started, one of the labels was under. I think that's if there's no vote, it's an undervote. So they click it as an undervote.
Right,
So
but here they're only clicking other, they're only clicking it if they
right. so
find an other
this
on that
station is,
contest, right?
right, this station is only counting these two people. So if it's anybody other than these two people, they click other.
Okay, but
The other-
Correct.
let me
correct.
just verify a couple things. They don't actually count the sheets of ballots as they go through, is that right?
No, they already have a batch of 30.
How do they, I know, but
Mhm.
the machines are not counting the sheets as they go through. There's no
So-
click as they
So
go through.
for every ballot, they have to click either one name, the other name, or other. So at the
Yes.
end, the total count should be 30. If it's not, they have to start over and do it
Yeah.
again.
Okay, so
Lynn, did you see this before? I showed it before, right?
I did. I
yeah.
watched the live stream, although I couldn't see very much.
Oh, okay, okay.
But yeah,
okay,
I've
so-
seen it in
so
screen.
I'm sorry, so you're saying other should get, because I don't understand that, because there's
The
an
two
other over there.
calculators will add up to 30 in the end. And
Exactly.
Ray, at other stations, they're adding up the other candidates. So each person's just on this one, the person on calculator left is responsible for one candidate. The person on calculator 2 is responsible for a second candidate. Anybody that's not one of those candidates, they click other.
Yep.
But at other stations, they're keeping track. They each have one candidate and they're keeping track. So because they're
Well-
accounting for their two candidates and for all the others, at the end, their two calculators should total 30.
I see.
Exactly.
So we have the names at the bottom are the two candidates here. We
Yes.
see Levine and the person's hand is in front of the other one. And then up at the top, I see the word other. And then there's a bunch of dashes on this one. So only
Yeah.
one of them clicks other if it's.
Yeah, these
other-
dashes mean that there's no other thing that they're keeping track of here. So this is inoperative. This one here.
Okay, let's go through and see, go kind of slow. We want to see what they're doing.
Laurel.
Okay, so now, wait, stop. So
That was a vote for Laura, and she clicked on that button there. So I don't know if
Yeah, I can't see the vote. I'm looking. I can't tell what's on the ballot. Can we see the vote? Because there's a claim. Oh,
Right here.
Their
Right here.
cameras can see it.
right here on this ballot here. There's Lara.
Okay,
You
would
can't
this
see it
be,
very well on this video, but the whole point is he has these two iPhones recording the whole process.
okay,
One of them is totally focused on that ballot, and the other is focused on the whole scene, like this, only a higher and a fixed perspective. So I think you see that later in the video.
oh, really? Okay, all right, let's continue.
Other. Levine. Other. Other worried about me.
They're hitting other a lot. And that's a long way up there, by the way, I will say, to have to move your hand all the way up to the top to click other when you're going to click it so many times. Human factors, I wouldn't have people trying to click buttons that are that far away. It would happen right in their hands. And I don't know how the other ones go, but I would have a hard time actually focusing on these ballots. They're moving too fast. We'll have to see the other video to see how it turns out.
Okay, now this kid is 11 years old, and he was at the demonstration. There was a big audience. There was about 300, at least 200 people there. He got a round of applause because he was like the youngest vote counter that has ever participated in the demonstration. So now they're talking. His dad is here, and he's explaining to the kid now what they're going to do. The kid had a question here, but you can see right now there's a 1 vote here. There's 3 votes for Senum. There's no votes for Sanders, and there's 26 other. So they're done their batch, and they've got everything totaling up to 30, so they can move on to the next batch. And then they'll record, Senum's total here as a result of their batch being.
Where do they
counted for
record
Senum.
that? Dale,
Well,
where do they record?
that's a question I think that is right here. This says batch tally sheet, so they're going to record. Maybe I don't see it filled in here right now. Maybe it's very light up here, but I can't see it very well. Maybe this is down here.
So there's going to be
But they
one overvote recorded and 3 votes for 1 person. That's it, right?
That's right. They've
Okay.
gone through a batch of 30 ballots just to accommodate the 3 votes for Senum, basically, and 0 votes for Sanders.
But as far as you know, there's no electronic tally being kept someplace.
That's right.
It's all on these sheets because
Yep.
one of the big, I don't know what to call it, but I
Issues?
just remember the statewide recount in New Hampshire when the Secretary of State had the totals in his pocket. He was going table to table and they would tell him the total and he'd write it down and put it in his pocket. And he was the only person who had access to the totals. And I asked at some of the tables, do you remember what you just told him? Oh, no, we're already on to the next batch. We have no idea what we just told him.
Yeah.
So 1 person in the state. So as long as that makes these tally sheets very valuable, doesn't it? They can't be, okay, go ahead. Sorry, I'm just,
Yeah.
it's very interesting.
Yeah. Okay, so here we can proceed now. Listen to what his dad says.
So when we're all finished, all of our numbers here should add up to 30, which means we have 30 ballots. No, we're done recording the under and over votes. That's done.
Now they're going to, this yellow button up here, now they've established they've got their 30, the batch counted for this pair. This yellow button here is going to clear everything out of here. Same thing over here. So you'll see him reach for it.
The rest of the candidates 2 by 2, 2 by 4. Okay. So now let's.
I have a question.
Okay, go ahead, Dave. Why don't you stop the video?
So if you look at these machines, that one on the left says 29, the one on the right says 0, and there's no, I don't see 30, a check of 30 on anything there.
You'll see it now. They're going to realize right now that there's this green sheet that's called this do it over stupid sheet. I don't know. That's not the real name, but
Yeah.
Watch what happens, because they're going to see that they've miscalculated, and then they're going to have to do the whole thing over
Yeah,
again.
but the other one didn't have the same thing. There's nothing on either of those that I saw that tallied up to 30, or they weren't even equal. Neither machine was equal. And I was expecting from your talk that you should see a count. Both machines should see the same count somewhere.
Here, watch the rest of this.
No, wait a second, Dave. That isn't the way I understand it. These 2
Right.
people are not doing the same thing. They're doing 2 different candidates in the same contest. And between the 2 machines, it's supposed to add up to 30, right?
Yes.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So now let's play it.
They're going to redo it again now because they've got 31.
Okay,
See?
we don't know which one was wrong.
She's got one, and he's got 30 others, and that's one vote over. So now they have to redo the whole thing.
Now let me stop right here to say that,
Mhm.
at least in the Cyber Ninjas count in Arizona, they had 3 people counting the same ballot independently. They would each look at it independently and tally each one on a list in order.
Mhm.
And then at the end of it, sometimes they would still have to go back and redo it and search for that one. But since they were in order, they had some chance of kind of comparing the 2 tally sheets to see which one they disagreed on and getting back to it. Here, all they're doing is, okay, but they are counting the votes. Okay, well, that's interesting. All right, let's see
Right,
what they
so-
do. Let's
So
see.
I have another comment.
Yeah,
Years ago, when I was a consultant in a computer company, I had a client who was adding back when we mailed in checks. So we mailed in the utility bills and stuff like that. And they would take those from the lockbox and they would have 3 people entering the same data into the computer systems, right? And then they would compare if all 3 worked, the totals all 3 came up, that was a good batch. If 2 worked, they would use the 2 because now they're entering it into a computer. So they have a database with 3 tables, right? And the same information in each one. So if 2 of the tables match, they would say that's okay. If all 3 didn't match, then they have to redo it again. But if all 3 matched, they were okay. If 2 of them matched, that was okay. They would use that information. And if none of them matched, then they would have to redo it. So I like that method. I'm not real crazy about this method, and I'm not crazy about these machines either.
no,
So I think the whole point of Clint's system is rather than having 3 independent people counting the same thing, you have this video recording of it.
But that's not that you still have mistakes there. You have no check. With the 3 people counting the same thing, you have three checks.
So I just wanted to mention that for this demonstration that he's doing, you don't see the iPhone setup at every station for, the sake of time and money and whatever. He didn't set it up at every station, but in an actual
That's not
count.
the point. That's not the point. But go ahead, keep going.
no, I think it's still valid. What Dave is saying is that in order to because human error is rampant. And the other thing that Susan was bringing up, I think is so critical is that once you've tallied these and you've written it down with a chicken scratch onto that yellow form, now you have to go over and somehow enter that into a computer or something,
Right.
and then add them all up and be accurate about that. And let me tell you, that was the hardest thing about Cyber Ninjas. They didn't have a good way of doing this, and they had remember they had 10,431 batches of 200. So we're not talking about 30. We had 200 in a batch with 10,000 things to add up and keep track of. And it's so hard to lose track of those little things. And so anyway, that's a critical thing that you were bringing up, Susan. Okay, so let's.
And one more quick thing,
Yeah.
not to sound so critical, because I can see that a lot of time and care has gone into trying to develop the system. So, I'm going to watch this many times and try to be more positive. But I will just say that another thing is that you may be recording it, but who is going to go back and watch all the recordings of all those iPhones over all those tables? And whereas the system that Dave mentioned from his bank, and Dave, that's one of the best systems I've ever heard, by the way. You have an immediate, and the AP should be doing that. There are huge mistakes that are made in election reporting because the AP has stringers at every elections office calling in results to I think it's 5 banks of data entry people around the country. And there are huge mistakes that are made in that data entry process that they go back and try to correct. Yeah, there's no real-time correction here, I guess. So go ahead. But interesting.
So just in response to that, and I'm not defending anything, I'm just trying to explain what I understand.
Thanks, Lynn. Thank you, Lynn.
Is that I think a big part of the recording is the deterrence. So just like when we go and physically observe the canvassing after the vote, a big part of the reason we do that is that people know that you're watching and they'll be more careful. They'll, make sure they don't make a mistake. So I just wanted to point out that that's why they have this green sheet, so that people who
Well,
are watching,
that is very important. I agree. That is a very
can
important.
I just finish what I'm saying?
Oh, sure.
So the people who are watching either live or the recording later are watching what these iPhones recorded. They understand, wait a minute, they're counting the same batch again. What's going on? So, they have to show this on the recording. Okay, we're clearing everything and we're counting this batch again.
But
Yeah,
you
yeah.
don't know if it's a different batch or the same batch, because the batch just comes in from somewhere. Are the batches
Well,
numbered?
again, you have this recording of the overall view, and I think they'll show it later what the camera setup is. But again, if the people who are doing this didn't know that they were being recorded every move, they might just fudge it and say, "Oh, just put something down, just go on." But
Yes, but
because they
are the
know
batches
every move is being recorded,
are the batches serialized in any way?
Yeah, that would make sense. Yeah, it probably is. I don't have that level of detail or even a written procedure to all the logistics that we're talking about right now.
Okay, but in this
it
view,
would make sense to serialize them. Yeah.
in this view, though, we have what looks like a plastic bag full of stuff on the left.
Mhm.
We have the one in process in the middle, and maybe the discard pile on the right. Or do you think those are completed batches, or what is that pile of sheets over there, do you
I
think?
think the one on the left are the batches they have to do. The one on
Yeah.
the right, which are upside down, are the ones that they've done. And
Mhm.
those would have the yellow sheet at the top,
Yeah.
the tally sheet.
I
And
think
then
so.
at some point, I mean, I'm an accountant. I know, at some point they're gonna take all these yellow tally sheets and summarize them. And, so as long as you have the chain of custody for all this paper, where you've got a paper trail, you've got a video trail, that you can go back and audit if you want to.
And
So-
but they've got a regular pencil here. They can erase those those numbers they put on there and change into whatever they want. And to figure it out, you'd have to go back through the video and find it, because there's no secondary check on that yellow sheet, which is a critical part at that point.
Also,
Okay. Go ahead.
in this case, if you're going to go through with the system, I would have like that green sheet is, I would have a sheet with each batch with the batch number on it, so that you could know that that was the batch. So if you're going through the video later on, you could skip to the green sheet and see what batch that was. You wouldn't have to watch the whole video.
No, I think that sheet is the one with the number on it is probably at the top in the middle. There's probably some numbers on there. I can't read them from this.
Right up here you're talking about?
Yeah, there's probably a batch number there.
Yeah, it is probably, it's batch blank.
But I hope that
yeah.
their cell phone video would be, although this is pretty good compared to, and if it's not a whole lot better than this, it might be hard to read that. But yeah, okay, let's see what they do now with this one.
Okay, so they've realized that they have to redo this now. Here we go.
Reset. Okay.
Yeah, somehow. Maybe if I go under.
So I think she's going to keep track of the other now, because he got 30 of them and he was off by one. So now she's going to keep track when they're redoing it.
Sort of. Sandwich.
And I just wanted to mention this defeats the whole purpose of the video link, that he's picking up each ballot and holding.
Yeah. So it's pretty simple. And if you were to have the apparatus over your station, your counting station, you'd probably be meticulous about getting a good shot of each ballot. In fact, the woman who was doing the introductory training to all these volunteers came, some of them came the night before to do a preliminary training, but she's saying constantly, this is one thing that we want to emphasize, be mindful of the camera when you're doing the voting, when you're doing the count. Be mindful of the camera, that you should make sure that you're always getting a good shot of the ballot. I think that's and it's being ignored right here. But
Well,
if
of
they
course
were if they were doing a real count, they would be a little bit more careful.
Yeah, because of course they're doing it without the actual camera setup, so it's
Right.
hard for them.
Except that I'm there, so I'm kind of. I was wondering whether I'm making the people nervous when I'm hovering over their station or anything. But they proceeded without any problem.
You mean the cameras weren't really on? Oh, sorry.
Now, they said that they couldn't put the cameras up to every station, right, Gail? They couldn't afford it or something?
Yeah, they only had one actual camera setup that I showed at the beginning. Did everyone see that? If you didn't see it, I can show it again.
Well, no, don't go back just
No,
yet.
no, don't go back now.
No, I'm
Because
not going back in the video, but I can
but
show
why-
the still shot of it.
No,
But
we-
why did they only have one, Dale?
Because because this is a work in progress.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
I don't know.
Well,
You could think, I sent Clint Curtis a question last night. So he did answer my question last night. Yes, you're going to go through this all these people that are running for governor here. This is like the governor's race, I think. All these people that are running for governor, you're going to count. If there's 20 of them, you're going to go through this this batch of ballots 10 times to get a count for all 20 candidates, all 20 contestants.
all right.
And that's just for governor. And then you've got to go through them again for the Secretary of State and the race.
Okay, stop it for a second. I want to hear what Lynn had to say. Go ahead, Lynn. What did you say? Because I couldn't hear it.
Well, I was just mentioning 10 times for governor, and then you've got to go through it, however many Secretary of State candidates there are, 8. So you got to go through them 4 more times for the Secretary
Yeah.
of
So
State.
you have to take all of the candidates on the ballots and every yes and no. You got to go
Yes.
through. Take all that whole number, and sometimes there's maybe 50 on the ballot. You'd have to go through it, in that case,
25 times.
Yeah.
Yep. Mhm.
Okay. And then it seems like if you want to be independent from computer technology,
Mhm.
like ban the machines, you still do have some machines here, and you are relying upon that video recording, which will inevitably fail the video recording will not work, or it'll be deleted or something else. It's very hard to guarantee that you have that. All right, so let's I guess continue. Let's see what else we're doing. Are we gonna watch this whole
Yeah,
thing?
well, that's what I'm going to skip, but you get the idea that they're recounting the whole thing, and now she's going to get up with 30, and somebody's going to have one vote, so that there's 29 other and 1 vote for somebody. I think it's Hannick that gets it. But let me just skip a little bit ahead here. You can see there. This is just doing it. We're almost there. We're almost there. Here we go.
And by the way, usually they don't allow regular pencils, because you could mark other marks on there and cause overvotes and alter these ballots.
Yeah.
So that's something that they're in violation of the normal procedure.
Okay, we have 30. Right.
All right. She just said, okay, we have 30. So you can see now that's 29 and 1.
Oh, okay.
21 actual vote that they going through this ballot twice. This batch twice. They've got 1 actual vote now, but it's it's correct. It's accurate, and it's not like a machine counting it. It's people counting it. That's the concept. There's a little bit of Clint Curtis here at the end, so let's just go.
One for Hannah. We got here.
This is awesome. They're a little small. Are they? No, they're perfect.
Hannah got one.
Yeah. I'm always hitting them with stuff.
Okay. You got that. Okay. Grab this.
Okay, you saw her mark the tally, and this is all the video I shot. You saw her mark the tally on the yellow sheet, and yeah, there's stuff that is probably the what Ray says about the pencil and everything is like a thing, but I think that there's Clint's thinks he's got it covered by having everything video recorded as well. So that's
So at least they're got a couple of good things here. One, they're using hand marked paper ballots, which I support that. They're not using just the machines and putting in the numbers with no hand marked paper ballots to work with. So that the fact that they're doing that, and I do have some issues with what do they do with the numbers. I asked Clint this, like, do you enter them into a spreadsheet? Is that allowed? Because you said no machines, and they say, oh yeah, it's okay if we enter them into the spreadsheet. And then what I think happens is that you start saying, well, we want to make sure we get it into the spreadsheet well, so let's use barcodes or something else so it's easy to scan them in. And then pretty soon you work your way back and you're basically back to where you are. But anyway, yeah, it's interesting. All right, so any more? Go ahead.
yeah, I'm just going to show you this. Let's see, did I share this? If I think I'm sharing it the right way.
Is this the
this is the turnout, just to kind of give you a see. The reason I say that is my impression of the demonstration and the presentation that evening was it's not quite ready for prime time, but it is in development. And the main thing is this county board of supervisors wanted to ditch the machines, and this is a way to do this manual count. But the Secretary of State's office and the legislation that just got passed is going to prohibit this from taking place.
Which town is this, or which county?
Shasta County. It's about it was a 3-hour drive from the Bay Area to Shasta County, and Reading is where this presentation was. And so you can see, let's see if this is at the beginning where I didn't think many people were going to show up. The reason I say it's not ready for prime time, they're doing they have one station, the one that had the cameras over it. They were doing the station, but the person who was showing it on screen was showing it backwards. And nobody said anything. This is like reverse. This is a 6, and it's showing in reverse. But it's.
But let's understand that. I want to make sure I understand what you're saying there. So this is the screen here of what these people in a separate room are observing of the count in some other place, right?
No, it's at the back of the room.
Oh, at the back of the room.
Yeah.
And so they're looking at the screen though of what the camera is observing of one counting station.
Yeah, that was the idea, but it wasn't a very well done, executed one, because here's a distant view of this screen. They're showing it backwards. Nobody said anything. Probably people who are in the audience don't know what is going on here. It was not a full-fledged demonstration for this audience, other than people talking about how it's so important to have evidence.
So by backwards,
you
mean a mirror image, maybe?
Yeah, mirror. Mirror image. Yeah, backwards. Yeah, mirror, reverse.
Okay.
Dale, can you show the picture of the setup with the iPhones?
Yeah, let's go do that.
And I just wanted to mention, I really appreciate you going to this. This is so.
Yes, Dale, this is wonderful. Really interesting. Thank you so much.
So glad you could go.
Okay, so this is the view. See this iPhone right here?
Yeah,
Can you see this?
yes, I do.
This is the lower iPhone.
Okay.
Let me
it's
back
just-
up. Let me give you an
I
overview.
see it. It's just
Here's the
focused.
lower iPhone. Here's the upper iPhone.
Okay.
And then this is the view of the lower iPhone. I got right up close to it to see if I
Yeah,
could
it's a
actually read it.
good image of the ballot. It is
See,
a very good image of the ballot.
Yeah.
Exactly, as long as they don't pick it up and wave it around.
That's the
So
one
it-
after
Well,
they,
it's still there on the desk, right?
after
No,
they
they-
counted it. That's the one after it's done. No, that's the one,
No.
No,
Well-
that's the one they're counting.
that's
Yeah.
the one they're counting. Okay.
Yeah. And you can see the discharge bin is empty, so you know
Yes.
that's the first ballot.
Okay.
Yeah,
And the
this
yellow
is
tally sheet is at the bottom.
yeah, and then the yellow sheet is the once they get through this batch, they'll mark it on the tally sheet what this is.
Okay, what is the view of did you get a view of the upper one? Oh, that's the one that's reversed. That is a mirror image. You
Yeah,
said.
so the upper one shows the whole setup, the two machines, so you can see the numbers incrementing.
Uh-huh.
And the ballots in the middle, so you can see what their hands are doing and everything.
Yeah, this reminds me of you don't have to have all of this equipment. All we had was I had a camera. I was an activist at the time, and we were trying to get rid of this one development that was going in, and they had a special election for it. And I brought in my video camera and video recorded every single ballot. But even then, it was hard to go through that recording and prove anything one way or the other, or really this is what human beings are really bad at, is going through monotonous,
Mhm,
ballots
mhm.
like this. Your eyes will peel
Mhm.
apart and start to bleed, and then you'll say, "Give me, have mercy," and you won't want to do it. But that led me to believe that it would be great to take a picture of every ballot. It was before having any ballot images, but it started me on the roll of having something like Audit Engine. But anyway,
Mhm.
okay, so
I like the idea of the audit engine.
yeah, Audit Engine was the idea I like of taking a scan of every ballot, and then we have them that we can carefully review
Now,
later.
when I
Otherwise,
posed the question to Clint about, well, you could, it's actually an advantage if you do have a machine count. The Secretary of State is requiring machine count, even if they want to do a manual count, that they have to do a machine count.
yeah,
That's actually a benefit.
Yeah, that's what I'm telling Clint, but he's
Yeah.
saying, no, you don't want to put it through the scanners first.
Yes,
we
you do.
we want to
Okay.
count it first. But this is what the hand that they're going to be dealt with by the Secretary of State is that they're going to have to do the scan first.
Mhm.
And then their only recourse, the way the legislation is written, is like completely disparaging a manual count. They're saying that you have to have you have to do a machine count.
If you only have one count, you have no idea if it's right or not.
that's right.
I don't care
Oh,
if
yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah.
manual or if it's scanned. You only have one idea. There's no comparison.
So
Yeah.
I'm telling
No
Clint
idea.
I'm telling Clint you should welcome the scanning as well, because then you're going to be able to see which one is accurate, and if it's wow,
Neither of them
suppose
are
it is the same. Suppose it is the same.
I
Then
don't think either of them will be accurate. To tell you the truth.
Right.
Well,
Well, it can be. It's not accurate in the sense of the exact vote count, but it's definitely accurate in the outcome. You would think that the winner, the correct winner, would be declared
Well,
by both counts.
I think you would probably find the correct winner, but if you read the laws, and I haven't read them, but this is what they tell me, you're only allowed what, Ray? Do you know one in a 500 or a miscount?
no, that's just a design target. That's not there. No machines actually, nothing ever actually complies with that. But
I know, but isn't that the
that's,
law?
I know, that's the
No,
target.
no, it's the certification standard date. When they certify the machines, either the federal election assistance commission, or if they do state certification, they always say, oh, it was accurate to so many, to such a percentage, but nobody checks that in real time in an election.
But I think we can agree that the human eye looking at just one ballot is the best we can do. We can't do better than a human looking at a ballot to determine what it says. Maybe a magnifying glass or something, but basically we have to be able to, human beings with our eyes, take a look at something and decide what it says together. There's nothing better than that. But that's doing it slowly. Okay. Yeah, human beings are best at analyzing one ballot at a time slowly. If you say, let's do now, I just looked it up in Shasta County. It's not even close to the smallest county in California.
No.
It's pretty big. It's got 97,000 voters. You would get, a pretty good fraction of that. But let's say at least half, you're going to get 50,000 ballots coming through.
Mhm.
And to do this with 50,000 ballots is absolutely going to be a non-starter. Now,
He wants to do it precinct by precinct.
it's just,
Yep.
I'm telling you, it's just a lot. And then down, because the smallest county in California is only 782 voters. Now, they're still required to use the machine. They're still required to do a 1% manual tally. They only have one precinct, so they count all of them by hand anyway.
Mhm.
So they're already doing a full hand count always in
Mhm.
Alpine County. It would be interesting to interview them and find out, look, you always do a full hand count of every single election. Although I've watched them, I mean, most people haven't, like probably in this audience so that you showed there, it would be interesting to find out, like, how many of you have actually gone to the 1% manual tally, which is a state law in California that they have to do every single election, and watch them? Because I'll tell you, I have really zero, I'm going to say this the right way. I have full confidence in the people doing the tally, that they're honest and they're trying to do the tally right. What I don't have confidence is the guy who walks around and says either I'm comparing with the computer result and that's right or wrong, I'm going to accept it and then redo it, and then what they do with the numbers. And so I have real suspicion, like I would, no way I would be confident about this because of the yellow sheets. They've got to have not just one yellow sheet, but somehow to have two yellow sheets or something, a backup, so that we know that they entered them right, and that the numbers are going to add up, because that's the hard part, adding them up. And especially if you get a whole bunch of hand counted counties, you think about it in Monmouth County. Okay, they had a thumb drive problem where they uploaded 6 additional thumb drives. And what was it, 400 thumb drives they had to deal with, or more than that, 700? It's a lot of just getting the data without any hand to eye writing down on a sheet. I spent so many hours, by the way, looking through the hand entered data in Maricopa County of them doing the scans and just writing down the number of the batch. And so many of those were screwed up, because the people start to, a 4 looks like a 7 or a 9, or a 3, it looks just like a 5. They don't cross it. I mean, there's so many ways that those numbers can be just off by 1, and all of a sudden you can't map it, and there's no redundancy there. There's actually, say one more thing, there's actually been research on how to have numbers written so that you can find errors in the written numbers. So you don't use sequential numbers. You have one more digit at the end. The first part of it is all sequential, and there's one more digit that you add. And it's a standard list that you go through. And so you would put that in so you can always and it accounts for things like reverse digits and 3 digits in a row, and all the things that happen with human being when you make mistakes. they thought of them and said, what is the best way to do this? So it's interesting that I have a paper on that. I'll try to circulate, but all right. So any
So
more
I have,
questions?
yes, I have a couple more questions.
Yeah.
Dale, if you could find out from Clint the name of his company and where it's registered, I'm very interested in that.
Mhm.
I don't know if you feel comfortable asking him that, but I'm
Well, I've asked him along similar lines, and he hasn't responded yet. But like I asked him, does he have a proposal to Shasta County? I would assume that
well,
maybe is
right.
this just educational on Clint's part, or is he actually
Well, I'm pretty
thinking
sure
that he's going to get funding to ramp this up to a scale where they can actually do a count?
I'm pretty sure he's probably being funded right now, and that's why I'm interested in what his company is and who else is involved in it. I'd
Mhm.
like to know, who else is involved in this effort. But again, not to be negative, but I am being a negative because that statewide hand recount in New Hampshire, before that, I thought I was a hand count proponent. And after that, I think just about every single thing that could go wrong with a hand count was there in full daylight. I mean, the boxes arrived in cardboard boxes from towns all over the state, broken open. The seals that were supposed to seal them were covered the whole top of the box. And when you pulled them up, they came off just like Post-it notes. They were not seals at all. Um, then they had this system with all these big in the state capitol, a huge room with dozens and dozens and dozens of tables, mostly elderly people, hand counting the ballots, with the assistant secretary of state going around with his little slip of paper, getting the totals and sticking it in his pocket. And then periodically he would go up to the front of the room where one woman was running a computer and he would read so-called totals, to her. And, miraculously at the end, everything came out just perfect. But it was inconceivable that it would be perfect. And so not to malign a hand count, which is such an idyllic Norman Rockwell, all-American, it touches all our heartstrings to think of citizens sitting and counting our ballots, but it's something that's really, really rife with problems. And those yellow sheets, you need to know who are they going to, who's keeping track of them, how are they being entered into a final tally,
Then check
who has oversight,
chain of
and
custody on those as well.
and the chain of custody of all of that, and the chain of custody of the batches themselves going to the people and from the people, and there's so much to keep track of, which is why machines do help to keep track of that. The thought of two separate counts, a machine count and then what Ray does, the ballot image audit, or even what Clear Ballot does, rescanning ballots to check, any kind of check is good. And if Clint wanted to use this as a verification of machine counts, like you said, Dale, but to have it as the sole system is pretty scary.
And
Thanks.
that this is a thing about when I watch the hand tally in California, they're comparing with the computer count. They're not supposed to know what it is. So the guy will walk around with his clipboard and say, okay, what did you get for this? And they'll say, 14. And then he goes, check, and he goes through it. And if it doesn't check, then he goes, and then they have to do it again, sometimes 3-4 times, right? With a different team. Now, if you don't have that check, I've thought about this, and I've said you have to have two teams. You have to have two teams like this. One in one room doing it, all this stuff, and another room doing it. This, however they want to do it, redundantly, so that you have two checks. Because I don't trust either
I
one.
would go with the 3, not the 2.
Well, sure, you could go with 3. That's even better, because then you have somebody to break the tie.
Yes.
But basically, you don't want to ever be in a mode where you're just going by the vote of, we're breaking the tie. If there's ever any discrepancy, you have to go back and figure out what it is until everybody agrees. And what they were doing here was also going with the machine count kind of concept, where I watched it and they're going, okay, well, she was like this. I can show you. They had the bubble here, right? And they had the bubble down here. and the mark was about there.
Hmm.
Okay, so you would, it's kind of an unknown, like what did the person really want to do? It was a little bit closer to this one than that. Okay, so if you wanted to give the guy the benefit of the doubt, you'd say he was shooting for that one up there. People sometimes, their hand doesn't do what they want, right? They color it and they, oops, wrong way. So, but he said, okay, well, that's in between, and the machine would count it as an undervote. So we're going to go with the undervote, as opposed to saying, I think the intention was to hit that bubble. Otherwise, he wouldn't be voting at all. I mean, the guy intended to hit one of those, and then maybe but so that's a gray area, and it's hard to know how to solve those gray areas. But that's why if you can, this is why I believe Audit Engine is the right way to do it, because the vast majority of marking is fine. We can agree on all of the ones that we agree on and have a couple of auditing systems running, and then we both come up with the ones that are different, and then say, let's resolve those. Just resolve those handful of things at the end.
Right.
All right.
And Dale,
Uh,
one last quick thing, which
Okay.
is, Dale, how did they handle undervotes? So in other words, they're going through and they see not
No,
In
no,
a contest,
no
that there's
votes.
no vote for anyone in a contest that they're actually
yeah. Did they tally that?
counting.
But I mean, I was asked that wrong.
Yeah.
Part of what Ray does is come up with, he does his audit, he sees the discrepancies between the way the voting system counted the votes and the way his system counted them. And then he goes and looks at those ballots to see what the actual vote was. But in this hand count, is there a way for ambiguous marks or somebody that, it's unclear who they intended to go be adjudicated somehow to be resolved, or they're just plain old counting? They're not.
I posed to him, it's too bad Tim White's not here, because I posed to him Tim White's concern about smiley faces or unique identifiers on the ballots and everything. He said, those ballots are not counted. They're put aside just as if it were a provisional ballot. Because
No.
they don't want to get involved in adjudicating these ballots.
Who does that? Who puts them aside?
Well,
I mean, there's somebody there looking at them to say, we're putting these aside, and then they would look at them.
I think that that would be taken care of before the individual batches.
Okay.
Kind of.
Okay.
Were those the actual ballots?
No, this is a demo.
No, this was a test. This is all
No,
a
I mean,
test.
is that sheet, was it the shape of an actual ballot? I mean, the image of an actual ballot?
No, these are not real ballots. These are just fake ballots that they came up with as a test. These are not ballots they're using in California, I'm sure.
Because our ballots, you saw our ballots, they're a long sheet and
Yeah, no, these are not real ballots. These are demo ballots that look like similar to a ballot, but like a regular machine readable ballot has other features, and this one doesn't have them. You have to have some kind of timing marks or something around the edge and ways
Right.
to determine the style and things like that. These have none of that.
Yeah.
So if
These
I
are
could
not-
imagine, if I could imagine something that like you had a machine and you actually chose on the machine, and then you had printed ballots in the printer with no selection on them, and then the machine, when you cast the ballot, it would print on the ballot in the printer and then come out, and this is what you would be viewing here. Is that what
No,
see
this is,
correctly?
well, no, I think they're thinking about this for live ballots in a real election, not having any other equipment or any kind of backup, and just doing it by hand with these little counters. That's what they want to do.
Yeah, I know, but that ballot, is that what I would see when I go to mark my ballot? I would use
This
that
ballot, no, these are not real ballots. These are fake ballots just for a demo.
No.
But they're similar to a real ballot.
They're similar, but they're far from a real ballot.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I know in New Jersey, we have select one from column A and one from column B,
Yeah.
that kind of thing.
Right.
that-
These are more like what you see in California, other places, which are columns of names. That's more typical.
Yeah.
The grid type that they use in New Jersey, and I think in New York in some places, they have a contest going across and then parties that go down. And if you want,
Right.
you can just go down the party line.
Right.
And they're similar to the old push button
Machines.
Koya Advantage ballots, systems that they're trying to get rid of.
And how are the other states, since you've done other states?
The other states tend to be ballots similar that look similar to these, but are typically they're typically I can show you while we're here. Let me just pull up one here. Sure, I'm sharing the screen. Share screen. Yeah. Well,
Yeah, I
that's
would see what other states use as ballots.
that's not the one I wanted to look at. Let me see. I got to get to one that's a hand marked. It's the bigger one here.
Well, while he's looking for that, Dave, I hope you'll come back on these calls, Dave, because I like your logical mind and was it your banking background?
Yeah,
I
finance.
think it could be, yeah, I think you'll be fascinated by I don't know how much you know about what Ray's doing. Maybe you've been on other
Yeah,
calls
well,
and
he's seen somewhat because they're in New Jersey and I've been working with them. But
Yeah, we have.
but the more you can join us, the better. And I'm so happy you guys have come on. So this is very typical. This is a ballot from Maryland. It is ES&S. It's very typical of what you would see in columns like this, where there's the contest and the names.
Okay.
It's similar to what they're showing. And then you see, there's timing marks around it, very similar to what you guys have, but the ones that you have are landscape oriented ballots.
Right. Could you send me one of those PDFs?
Say again?
Could you send me one of those PDFs as an example? I'd like to just see it and have it
Yeah.
as a reference.
No, I have all these sort of things are and Dominion is the other, type, and that's what you have that as well. And let's just go over to DeKalb County, for example, and look at the a ballot there. So this is Dominion's ballot scanned, okay? And Dominion has these big blocks in the corner, a little bit different layout, but essentially the same. This is the same columns and rows format.
All right.
And very, very much more typical than the kind of grid format that you guys use in New Jersey.
Yeah, if you could send me just two like different examples so I could look at them to see what
yeah, I can do that. Okay.
That would be awesome. Thanks.
Yeah, so you can see here that sometimes like these vertical lines get lighter in the scan, and you really do have to index to these blocks on the sides to show you where the bubbles could be, because even though your eye can't see it usually, there's variation in the speed of the scan going through here. And so sometimes by the time you get to the middle, it'll be off by a whole timing mark. Your eye won't see it. It's amazing.
Why would you have those timing marks all the way down? Why don't you just put them right where the dot is going to be?
Well, because they don't know where they're going to have, because they can design these ballots to have a bubble anywhere on any of these timing marks. So the timing marks are always all exactly the same. And then depending upon, whether you have, a bigger gap in here, sometimes they're spacing these out, but sometimes you'll have like a different gapping here. So you don't know necessarily whether this one uses that one and this one uses this one.
Yeah,
So
but it doesn't make any sense.
Why? It does make sense, though. Why do you say it doesn't make sense?
Why don't you just put a square where the bubble is?
Oh,
Why
over
figure
here?
all this stuff out?
Well, because you don't know where this bubble is going to be.
Well,
And
sure you do. When you lay out the design, you know where the bubble is going to be.
well, when
How
you
can you
lay it
say
out, but when you're scanning it, I'm saying is that this bubble can shift around. Now they do have one vendor that does it kind of what you're saying, and they put that's see who does that? It's Hart. They put a big black square around this, and you just color it in, and they rely upon the big black squares to figure out where they are.
Yeah, that makes more sense.
Well, realize how these were originally generated is you'd have a little LED over here or something that would just see this block, and you'd have one at the top here to know where across you're going
Right.
to be looking.
Yeah,
And
I agree. I agree with the old technology. That's great. But
but
you know,
it
why
is
do we have to
still
keep with stay with the old technology when we have better technology?
well, I'll tell you is that I'm surprised at how much it varies going down.
Mhm.
And looking for a box here maybe possible, but then you have to still be able to do that, like look for the boxes whether it's filled in or not.
Yeah, but it doesn't have to be a box. It can be
No.
some kind of a mark that's conclusive that this is what you look for, and right next to it, it's either black or white.
Except Dave, think of how a ballot goes into a machine. It can be skewed, it can be upside down, it can be wrinkled or folded or something spilled on it. So
But
those timing marks help to line that bubble up with what the machine expects to see, so that it
If
doesn't
you're
matter.
there could be
Yes,
other
if you're
designs.
reading,
No,
if you're reading the marks and you're looking for the marks, that helps because you can orient it differently. But if you're looking for just a mark, one mark, like a star or a half moon, or you know, an X next to it, and looking for a circle next to a big X or a cross,
yeah, okay. So
that should be even easier.
well, let's not go too much into, there's possible ways to do this other than what they're kind of done here. Well, the nice thing about what they've done here is that this area inside the ballot frame is completely up to the county or whoever's designing it, what to put on there. There's no special marking in here. So they have all their marks on the outside, and that tends to be a pretty good way to do it. And I will say that this barcode down here is pretty robust. There's because it's so big, but basically you have to realize that there's going to be folded corners. There's going to be weirdness. People will color in between these marks. They do have one type of, it's kind of not around anymore, but it has an arrow like this. And there's a block there, and there's a block here with an arrow. And then here's the name. Okay, and if you want to vote for that, you fill this in right here.
Oh, Ray, you should do unshare so that we can see what you're drawing on the white.
Okay,
on the
sorry about
whiteboard.
that. Yeah. Okay, so there's an arrow, and there's a block here which is black, and this one's black. And then you would fill in with your pencil right here and color that in. Kind of like what you're saying, Dave. There's one company that does that. It's actually on the Sequoia machine, the same brand that he had up there. So they've tried that too. And you know, I don't really care like what they do in order to do this, because it comes down to the same thing. You got to kind of know where the bubble, where the mark's supposed to be, and then read it off.
Right.
However you want
Right.
to do that.
So
And
if you know exactly where the pencil mark is going to be, and
yeah,
you put something right next to it, I don't see how that could be any harder than what you're doing with the counting the blocks.
I wouldn't care. Like I'm just saying, is we live in the world that we live in. These are the two big vendors that produce this. And
Can't we always propose something different?
sure, you can start your own company and try to get it approved. But what I'm trying to do is just make sure that amongst the people that are in the business, that we can make sure that the vote's right, you know.
Yeah.
We can have a longer conversation about that, because I am interested in all those conversations, and even about having a standard ballot format and a standard barcode on all of them, so that there wouldn't be this variation. I can decide on what it's going to be and have everybody use the same format of ballot.
Well, yeah, we can talk about that offline. Maybe we will come up with a company.
Yeah, I do have a proposal, by the way. Okay, so now let's
So can I wrap up
Yeah, let's let you wrap up because we kind of diverged there for a second. Go ahead.
We did, sorry about that.
So the legislation is going to prevent them from doing the manual count, the initial count. But legislation in California allows the election official at their discretion to perform more than a 1% manual count.
That's right.
So what I'm suggesting to Clint, he hasn't responded yet, and the Board of Supervisors in Shasta County wants to sue the Secretary of State over this law that's preventing them from doing the manual count. I'm saying, yeah, they can sue the Secretary of State, but they really should prepare to do a 100% manual tally.
And try it before they get rid of it. I mean, if they do, I would say phase into this. Like, don't say all of a sudden we don't have the system really working. Let's ban the machines and then figure it out at the next election. That's asking for a nightmare.
That's why I'm supportive of the legislation, even though it's very draconian in keeping them from doing what they want to do.
Well, I think it's wise to go step by step. I mean, what you say is, okay, look, let's try this, see if it works. And I will almost guarantee that they will start doing this and then go, this is a lot harder than we thought. But for really small counties, like I was just saying, they have 900 people registered to vote. Half of them are going to vote. You only have 500. I mean, there's nothing wrong with hand counting that, but they still do use the machine, and because they're required to do so. So anyway, all right. I think what would be interesting here is to maybe write up or at least have a draft of concerns that we have about this process that we can work on as a group. And we can go and say, okay, here's all the issues that we have about this process. We're worried about this, that, and the other thing. And it's good because of these reasons, blah, blah, blah. And so then we would have something that we could say, okay, here's our list of questions, see if they're going to respond to them. Maybe even throw our hat in and say to Shasta County, look, we're worried about these things, about this process, and kind of get into the fray about the whole thing. It might be fun to do.
I'd like to ask Clint questions first, in fairness,
Of
before we
course not.
make
No,
assumptions.
I'm not
right.
saying that we're going to undercut him. We're going to ask him the questions, but still, we can decide what to do. I think it's still wise for us to start after this process of seeing this. And thanks again, Dale, for this great of documenting what was going on up there. Really interesting to see the big crowd of people and how they got it set up, and really what they were doing, because I had no idea. Okay, so I think that's the end of that subject. Let's stop the recording.